All right. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for being here this evening to listen to and participate in the presentation on a climate of action, what's up with climate in Arizona, and what can we do? This is the first of our webinars leading up to Environmental Day at the Capitol. We try to give everyone a little bit more of background on the issues that we'll be talking about. And then as we get closer to the day, we'll have more of the specific bills that we'll be addressing that day. If you missed it, we did previously do a volunteer lobby workshop, and you are welcome to view that. I can send you a recording if for some reason you weren't able to attend or didn't get it and are interested in it. So, and then we haven't firmed up the final dates for the rest of the webinars, but we should have those finalized here in the next couple of days. And then finally, just wanted to let you know that we are announcing our priorities for the legislative session tomorrow at the Capitol at 10 a.m. If you're available, you're welcome to join us and be part of the crowd of support on that. But I think, and then we'll be sending those priorities out and sharing those with everyone as well. So with that, I'd like to welcome and turn over this presentation to Alex Ross. He's with the Environmental Defense Fund, and Itzel Rios Vega, who is with Vote Solar. Appreciate them being here and sharing their knowledge, and take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sandy. Like she mentioned, I work at the Environmental Defense Fund. I'm an advocacy and partnerships project manager, which really is just a fancy way of saying I like working with other organizations in coalition. That's one of my favorite parts about Environmental Day. So excited to be here with you all this evening to talk about kind of what is the climate that we're facing, both legislatively and in the physical climate, right? So I'll turn it over to Itzel to introduce herself as well.
Thank you. Hello. Thank you. Hello, everyone. I am Itzel Rios Vega, and I am the Regional Director of the Interior West at Vote Solar. So similar to Alex, I work in coalition with a lot of organizations on key environmental priorities, including solar energy. I'm really excited to be here because this is a wonderful opportunity for us to get to talk about what's going on in climate in Arizona and how we can take meaningful action together. So with that being said, we can go ahead and take a quick look at our agenda for the evening. So this is what we will be covering. First, we're going to take a look at the overview of climate impacts on health and well-being. So this is how extreme heat, how air quality issues, and how water scarcity affect both our physical health, but also our mental health. And then we're going to take a look at Arizona's climate resiliency plan. This is going to be a look at the strategies our state is employing to adapt and prepare. Next, Alex is going to walk you through the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and the Inflation Reduction Act. So these are federal programs that can support climate mitigation efforts here in Arizona. And then we're going to tie it all together at the end by talking about Arizona's legislative session. It is coming up, and we want to talk about what's on the table and ways that some bills can make a difference. And then finally, we are going to wrap it up with opportunities for action, ways that you can get involved and support climate solutions here in Arizona. And then we'll have also some time for questions at the end. I don't want to leave that out. Awesome. So let's dive in by exploring how these shifting conditions are already influencing our health and everyday lives. So as you can see on this chart, climate change isn't just about hotter summers, but it affects every aspect of our well-being. Rising temperatures and extreme heat put us at higher risk for heat-related illnesses, which we can really feel here in Arizona. And the worsening drought stresses our water resources, fuels dust storms, and can contribute to things like valley fever. On top of that, we have wildfires and the smoke that they produce, which harm our respiratory health and add to air pollution issues like asthma. Add to air pollution issues and then create respiratory health issues like asthma. Then there are changes in vector ecology, which means we could see more illnesses spread by mosquitoes or other insects like West Nile virus. And at the same time, we have deteriorating living conditions and social inequities. And this amplifies all of those challenges and unfortunately hits low income and marginalized communities the hardest. So severe weather events like powerful storms and flooding can damage people's homes, can cause injuries, and can contaminate water supply as well. And then speaking of water, harmful algae blooms and other water quality problems become more common, further threatening public health. And a lot of this has been in the news recently, right? Like it seems like almost every month we see something related to extreme weather or to the environment, and it's only going to get worse if we don't do something about it. So to give you a snapshot of just how real this is in Arizona, I want to talk about some current data. According to the American Lung Association State of the Air 2024 report, Maricopa County ranks 7th in the nation for worst ozone pollution. And what's more, both Maricopa and Pinal counties received failing grades in all 3 pollution categories: ozone, short-term particulate, and long-term particulate matter. We're also now entering our 31st year of drought, which is insane, making our water crisis even more urgent. And this past summer, so June, July, and August of 2024, was officially the hottest on record for Arizona. And I feel like we all felt it. And as the housing crisis worsened, it was also a record year for heat-related deaths. And this just underscores how dangerous rising temperatures can be for our communities. These climbing temperatures are now contributing to larger, more extreme wildfires across the state as well. And all of these factors highlight how climate change isn't a future issue, but it's affecting our health, our resources, our families right now. So it is now more important than ever to take action.
Awesome. Thank you for that. That's very very informative, but also kind of a bummer, right? Lots of bad things about our climate right now, but there are thankfully things we can do to change that and turn things around for our communities. And so if you've been involved with Environmental Day before, you've probably heard about a climate resiliency plan. It's something that we've been talking about for a couple years, but really would kind of solidify climate action in the state government under the Office of Resiliency. And some asks that we have for the legislature this year include really empowering the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality to assess and monitor and regulate greenhouse gas emissions, as well as really taking a look at all the laws that preempt or block climate action, and really walking back some of those pieces of legislation that are really getting in the way of things like EV infrastructure, clean energy, new clean energy projects, as well as making sure to emphasize the energy efficiency programs that were made accessible to low-income communities through the bipartisan infrastructure law and the Inflation Reduction Act. And for a lot of those federal dollars, you do need to have some sort of climate action plan on the books to be able to apply in some cases. And so it's really a critical step in making sure that we're not leaving any money on the table when it comes to investing in the health and well-being of the people of Arizona. And I think one of the things that I've really been reflecting on, especially as we have a new administration, right, is that the Justice 40 initiative that was such a critical part of that legislation is probably no longer going to be a focus for the new administration. And so I think it'll be even more important than to have really strong state level policy and state elected officials who are going to be willing to make sure that the resources reach the communities that are most affected by climate. And then we also would want them to reject any bills that hinder clean, renewable solar and wind energy, or any bills that would impede pollution-free transportation, including zero emission vehicles. So it's a pretty comprehensive ask. It's a big ask. I'm sure there's lots of work being done already, but I think, it's critical now to keep that drumbeat going, even amidst, all the chaos that is happening at the federal level. There's still so much that can be done here in the state to really ensure a healthier future. And so I just wanted to kind of go over some of the big facts about the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and Inflation Reduction Act. They were passed in 2022. And since then, they've really been sort of like these huge, catalysts for investment in renewable energy and clean energy technology. So in Arizona alone, the investments from those two pieces of legislation created over 18,000 jobs and counting. And those are all, high-paying jobs in a new field that's not going to be disappearing anytime soon. And also Molly is joining our presentation. She is my biggest fan. And so there are some other pieces in that legislation that is also really critical to a clean energy future here in Arizona. There's a host of tax credits that were included that really promote clean energy projects and subsidize some development for clean energy production, which would give us more electricity to be able to power things like electric vehicles and sustain a true EV infrastructure if we're really looking at transitioning away from fossil fuel vehicles, right? I think that's one of the biggest things I know I hear is that we don't have the grid capacity to handle electric vehicles. Well, we can address that too, right? And so I think those were two really big pieces that Arizona can really benefit from, as well as, like I mentioned earlier, the energy efficiency improvement resources that were made available can really help people retrofit their homes and update things to be more energy efficient and really make use of the energy that they're already paying for. And then finally, I just wanted to kind of show this growth in renewable electricity capacity. So this graph is from the Clean Energy Business Network's State of Clean Energy report from 2024. And so it shows growth over the past decade. And I think that's really interesting, specifically as we're looking at a transition in administration, right, at the federal level, is that clean energy has continued to grow despite whoever's in office. And I think that growth is going to continue whether or not, I think if they repeal this legislation, we could see a huge, kind of slide backwards. But there really is so much invested already into a clean energy future that it really is sort of the smart business decision for a lot of corporations as well. So I think there's a lot of things to be hopeful about, especially, again, on the state level, to really make a difference in our day-to-day lives. And then, yeah, so like Sandy mentioned at the beginning, there's not a ton of bills that have been introduced yet. We're going to be keeping an eye out, so make sure you're signed up for the legislative updates so that you're getting all the latest information. But the two bills that we have kind of just kept an eye out for would be this SB 1016, which really just creates unnecessary hurdles for wind farm development. And then HB 2002, which redirects unspent funds away from whichever regional transportation authority that a municipality pays into. But really, this would just harm things like public transportation, highway maintenance, and public services. So those are the two bills that we are watching so far, but keep an eye out for more. And then finally, we're going to talk about all the different ways you could take action. Definitely the first one. Join us on February 12th at Environmental Day. We really need everyone there. Raising your voice. Oh, did not mean to turn my video off. But please join us. It'll be a great day. I always have a really great time, both talking to my legislators, but also talking to like-minded individuals, right? Other people who are really passionate about climate action. So it's a really great day. And as well, if you're going to be involved in any legislation that's coming down the pipeline, make sure you're signed up for the Request to Speak system in Arizona. That's how we're able to mark our kind of position on bills, which is really critical, especially in the committee phase of the legislature. They really do watch the Request to Speak sometimes for, to help indicate, where is the popular support behind a piece of legislation. And then Itzel, if you wanted to cover the last couple ones.
Yes. So like Sandy mentioned, we would love for you to join us for future briefings as well. So those will be coming up very soon. And as always, please sign up for legislative updates from us, because as session gets started, things are going to start ramping up and we will have tons of updates. And I think that that's all we have.
Yes. Short and sweet.
Great. Thank you so much. I am going to unspotlight you so I can see everybody and see any hands raised. I think I can do that. And we'll go ahead and take your questions now. You can either put them in the chat, or you can raise your hand, or raise your virtual hand, because unfortunately I'm not able to see everyone's real hand right now. So and then Alex, you want to go ahead and just stop sharing and then we can see everybody. That'd be great. Yeah. Excellent. Okay. So I don't see any hands up. Let me look in the chat. I'm not sure. Oh, here we go. This is a question from Russell Lowe's. While there are upward pressures on electric capacity, namely transition to electric transportation, data center electric usage, cryptocurrency, there are downward pressures on energy usage from the IRA and the bipartisan infrastructure law, which put hundreds of billions of dollars into energy efficiency, which will reduce electric usage. Which will be greater, up or downward pressure?
That's the question, isn't it? If we knew that one, it would be a lot easier. And I think it's always a tricky situation, because if we had just all the energy efficiency investments that we needed, we wouldn't be facing some of these problems. So there's no really great answer, but I think it really will depend on how much we are communicating to our legislators, right? Which benefits are really being utilized to make sure that we're really more focused on the positive clean energy build out, not clean energy to build more cryptocurrency farms.
Yeah, I think it's up to all of us to make sure that downward wins in this case. Kyle, you want to unmute and ask your question?
Yes. Hello, everyone. I'm Kyle. Nice to meet you all. Just curious, as far as actions to take, like some individual action I've taken is, for example, I bank with Atmos Finance. If you guys have ever heard of Atmos Finance before, yeah, only invests in solar projects across the United States too. I'm just wondering if there's Atmos, ATMOS. I'll put a link uh, to the company in the chat. Um, but just wondering if there's a list of maybe like private industry companies that you guys recommend that are taking climate action that maybe we can, I don't know, utilize to, further kind of the climate movement in a more passive way. Just, for me, I know it's really easy to put my money into my bank, right, and not think about it and have it work towards a cause that I care about, or other products, goods, services, a list of companies that you recommend to support.
Yeah. We don't have anything kind of like that on our kind of business engagement, unfortunately. It's all, or Sandy, I don't know if you guys have resources like that.
Yeah, we don't. I mean, we're focusing more on policy actions right now, but we have put together like I mean lists of individual actions people can take. And of course, one of those is to, yeah, not support banks that are investing in, fossil fuel projects, and or not invest in anything that is associated with fossil fuel. But we don't really have a list. I feel like there are some lists out there, and I can do some looking around and get back to you on that. And the other thing that we can do is there are entities like at the legislature and stuff that are supporting good policies versus those that aren't. So, so there's that as well. But
Awesome.
I don't have a list either. It's a good question. Mark is asking, how do we get environmental issues, water, and climate change into the priorities for voters, since environmental issues rank considerably below the economy and immigration? And I think he means in this last election.
I can take this one, Alex.
Go for it.
I think that it's super important to connect the environment to everyday life. It is so intersectional, and some people have a little bit of trouble kind of making that connection. So, for example, things like droughts, wildfires, extreme heat, they directly are going to affect our jobs, our housing, our healthcare costs. And so sometimes, a lot of folks can see climate as a separate issue and not something that's directly tied to immigration or directly tied to the economy. So that is super important, as well as just making sure that you are sharing stories. I always share the story of my little sister who grew up near uh, a polluted facility, and she had asthma, and that made her asthma worse. And so there was housing related to that, as well as the environment, and like kind of making sure that you know that not only your health, but like your wallet, everything is related to climate change.
That is a great point.
Yeah.
Uh,
I think the other thing is, just making it relevant for people in their daily lives, and also making it clear like it's not something that's going to happen way out there, that it's here and now, which was a big part of this presentation. So let's see. Saw another question. Oh, Kate is asking what happened on the federal energy permitting reform. What are your thoughts about this? And are there state level bills that address this?
Yeah, I'm not a policy expert by any means, but I do know, I think the permitting reform bill, at least in the last Congress, fell apart. But I believe they're likely to reintroduce something very similar. We know that's still a priority for a lot of Republican legislators, excuse me, especially, as we're looking at Bill and IRA funds, right? they're thinking, how can we kind of streamline this whole process before they take it away? So.
My understanding is that one of the reasons they didn't push it through is they figured they would have control of both the House and Senate and the presidency, and so they could get something even more, I'll say extreme. So and then there isn't anything comparable in the state legislature yet. We could see something like that, although we already have pretty weak requirements. So I am, I don't know exactly what they might do, but we certainly have seen over the last, half a dozen years, and we'll likely see again this session, bills to erect impediments to clean energy and try and keep coal plants online longer. The governor vetoed a bill on that in 2024, and we think that's likely to be back again. Let's see. Can you give an example of an entity at the legislature that lists green products or businesses or policies? No, there isn't any. And in fact, there have been a lot of bills just to make it difficult to establish criteria. And sorry, I just jumped in and answered that. But so.
I didn't see that one, so it's good.
Oh yeah, it was sent. I was sent as a direct message. That's why. Oh, okay, I get it. I don't see any other ones in the chat. Did I miss any?
I have another question, if you don't mind.
Let me just make sure there's nobody else because I don't wanna. Yeah, go ahead.
Just curious. So I'm a data guy by trade too. So I own my own data consulting company too, and try to align that work with advocating storytelling for causes that care about too. Just curious if you guys have found in particular any like statistics or stories backed by data or even not backed by data that have enabled productive conversations with maybe the individuals and groups that would uh, traditionally be, I suppose, counter environment. I don't know the right way to say it, but maybe not for as much environmental protections to enable kind of productive conversations towards orienting them towards taking action for the environment.
Yeah. I guess, yeah, just so I'm fully understanding more so like how like, or I guess resources that would more appeal to like and anti-environment and or fossil fuel maybe aligned folks, right?
Yeah, exactly. If there's any like facts or like stories or data that
Yeah.
has enabled good conversations with them, or maybe just strategies for even approaching those conversations as well.
Yeah, no, the that State of Clean Energy report that I mentioned in the presentation is actually we use that in our discussions with legislators on the Hill to talk about really like the economic argument because we find that that is generally the more effective one if we're talking strictly about like Republican legislators. And there's actually a report that EDF is going to be putting out soon that details in 23 of the 25 most invested in districts from the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and Inflation Reduction Act were actually Republican districts. So if anything, they're more tied up in this now than anyone else. So yeah, I'll drop that State of Clean Energy report in the chat because I think that if anything, it's just a really good look at the data of clean energy development across the country.
I think the other thing that has at least some impact uh, is the water connection with energy production. And we have been working a lot with some folks in Mojave County that have been battling gas plants. And of course, gas plants are, pollute, and some of them were being proposed right in neighborhoods. And then they also use water, not significant amount of water, not as much as a coal plant, but still. So I think those kinds of uh, making that connection with water, and where possible, including numbers, uh, I think can at least have a little bit of an impact in places where they're, really concerned about water. Mojave County has seen a lot more impacts relative to water depletion in recent years, as have a number of rural areas, because there are no limits on groundwater pumping in those areas. So that's another one I think that can have an impact.
Awesome. Thank you.
Before I forget to, on the legislative updates, we send those out every Friday. I sent the first one this last Friday for 2025. And if you're not on that list, and you're not in the Sierra Club system, you don't have to be a Sierra Club member to get them, just to let you know. But I would need your name, and an address, and email to add you to the system. And then I can just subscribe you only to the legislative updates. And so you shouldn't get everything else. But if you do, I can unsubscribe you. So let's see. Oh, someone was just telling me they were leaving. Kate is sharing there is a well-known study with data showing the most effective strategy is starts talking about what the person loves, and then how climate impacts that loved one place. Yes, the basics of any conversation is to start from where the person you're talking to is at, not from where you're at. And that is, yeah. Thank you, Kate, for sharing that. All right. I think I don't see any other questions. Anybody else? Richard.
Yeah, just to Kyle's question or point about facts and stuff, there's a ton of them. I was just reading today about how England closes its last coal-fired plant this year, and that's happening around the world, and it's happening here in this country. They say coal will be phased out by 2030, and I know of ASES, is American Solar Energy Society. They have a report, email they send me every Tuesday, and it's or every Monday. I'm not sure which. And there's a guy named Kyle K. Warmke, Warmke, and at the beginning of his talk, every time you can click on it, he talks about all the different things that are happening in the solar energy industry. And he just comes up with a ton of facts that you say you're into facts and stuff. So it might be something you want to check out. It's the ASES website. And it would be Jay Warmke. You just have to scroll down and see where his input is.
Yeah, there's a lot of good info and reports out there. The key is trying to make that connection. Like there's a great report on how uneconomic coal is, right? If you just want to talk about economics and not about health or anything else, but you have to kind of get to that place where the person you're having a conversation with is is hearing some of that. So yeah, anyway, but thanks, Richard. Yeah, I think it's always good to have that information available, and that's another good resource. And if folks want to, if everyone didn't get the info, I can always send it out afterwards as a follow-up too. Let's see, Christy.
Yeah, I unmuted Sandy. I think you missed my question. But most environmental people, like in this group, have to acknowledge that too many people are certainly affecting our environment. And Arizona in the news tonight said we have higher than the national average on growth, 1.6%. So we're growing faster than other states, yet we don't have water. And we have temperature extremes. I mean, the hot summers. Do we address that enough? I've been ignored that question in the past, Sandy, but we realize we don't have enough water and climate for as many people as we're getting. Hard thing to answer, correct?
Yeah, I don't have a specific answer on it, but I will say that I think it has a lot to do with how we live, and you can have more people and live more lightly on the land than we're doing, and so that's a huge factor as well. But I think overall, Arizona has always, not always, but in the time I've lived here, strives to be, number one in growth, and I think that kind of having that as kind of a goal is not sustainable, quite clearly. So
exactly. And many new people don't know they need to live sustainably here.
Right. I think that's it. Want to again thank Itzel and Alex for being our first presenters of the year. Great job. Appreciate it. And if you do think of additional follow-up or questions, let me know. If you missed part of this, because I know a couple people came in later, we will have the recording posted, and we can make a PDF of the slides to share, plus share any additional information as well. And look for more information on our upcoming webinars. I know we'll have one next week. I think it's going to be focused on climate and water specifically. And then we are going to have one on extreme heat and the health implications coming up as well. So.
Sandy, where are you meeting at the Capitol tomorrow? I'm just curious. Where are you meeting at the Capitol?
Oh, the news conference tomorrow is in what's called the Rose Garden area. It's
Okay.
outside there. It's where Carl, the bust of Carl Hayden is. If
Okay.
folks come down and you're looking, and just ask someone where that is, and they'll point you in the right direction.
Sandy, this is Jean Devine. I don't know where I am on this Zoom, but do you have some suggestions for all of us to promote Environmental Day at the legislature? It's a great opportunity to try and bring in new people who are interested, I think, but I don't know what's the best way to promote that for us.
Well, there are a variety of ways, but I mean, you can share on social media, email, talk to your friends and neighbors. I mean, if everyone wanted to bring one friend, that's probably one of the best ways to do it, because people tend to come to things and do things because someone they know asked them, or they know other people. And I do know part of what is fun about doing Environmental Day at the Capitol is the social part of it, where people connect and reconnect, and and also meeting with their legislators. But I think, meeting with each other is equally important. So,
Right. And are CHISPA and other organizations planning on being there also? Do you know?
oh yeah, yeah. No, we have a huge list of organizations that are participating. Some of which are on here: CHISPA, Arizona Coalition for Sonoran Desert Protection, Vote Solar,
Okay, good.
Environmental Defense, Climate Cabinet Action, a number of faith groups, Arizona Faith Network, Arizona Interfaith Power and Light. Yeah, it's like going to be more than 30 groups participating.
So that's a good point to do
Oh,
in talking to
Arizona,
people.
Arizona, Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander for
Oh,
Equity
good.
as well,
Great.
as I see
Thanks.
Niles on here too. Yeah. All right. Thank you again, and we'll call it a night and see you all online and at the Capitol. All right. Take care.
Thank you all. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thanks.
everyone. Thank you.
Thanks.